Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part? Initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
Lots going on in the world, and we'll get to that, and then I'll bring in the esteemed panel, see what they've got to say about a number of these things, including the official speech from Kamala Harris on yesterday, and all along those lines, including some protests that went on with that as well, because I understand that some of the members of the Palestinian and Muslim community were upset and even pulled out some of their support, and all along those lines. But in Ukraine, India's Narendra Modi urges Zelensky to sit down for talks with Russia, and that's definitely something that the folks will be interested in, and maybe even Sasha Starr, our expert on Ukraine, Russia, and China, will have some thoughts on that as well. But definitely that's something that we're seeing. And of course, questions mount over 6 hostages' fate in Gaza after the IDF finds gunshot wounds. So definitely that's something that's going on. And one of the hostages' daughter left the Netanyahu meeting with bad feelings that a deal won't happen soon. And Russia is weeks away from responding to Ukrainian incursion, officials say, and all along those lines. So that's definitely something that we're seeing as well. So definitely a lot of that is going on, and we're seeing a lot of that taking place as well. So a lot of that is happening, and we're also seeing Ukraine steps up strike into Russia as Moscow pushes ahead into the east. So Ukraine destroys the Russian ferry and pummels the airfields, but struggles in Donetsk. So that's definitely something that we're seeing as well. And activists opposed to the Rio Tinto lithium mine received an anonymous death threat. So that is something that we're seeing in Serbia, and that could rev up Europe's e-vehicles, but opposition is fierce. So we're seeing some of that as well. So definitely a lot's going on. So we're seeing a lot of things that are taking place. The German NATO base is on high alert over a Russian sabotage threat. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And definitely a lot of people are thinking about the crackdown on racist hate speech, and the UN is telling the UK about that. So a lot of things are going on in that regards and in that respect. So we're definitely seeing a lot of conversations about things nationally, including Venezuela's top court backing Maduro's disputed election win. So definitely we're seeing some of that going on. And the Indonesia shelves plans to revise election law as protests rage. So that's just some of the things going on the international front. I'll tell you about a couple of things going on the United States front. Then I'll bring in the esteemed panel, and of course they will have different thoughts on this, and I'll let them have their thoughts around that and what's going on in that space. It looks like there is the Democratic convention is over, and some people are saying that the Harris policy plans are facing new scrutiny. So definitely there was a joyful campaign. A lot of people were very pleased with that, and we'll see what folks have to say in that word. And in the historic convention speech, Harris presented his case against Trump. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out and all along those lines. So definitely a lot of things are happening around the world, and it looks like RFK Jr. has withdrawn from the Arizona ballot as questions swirl around a possible alliance with Trump. And definitely we'll see what folks have to say about that, including the Supreme Court limiting Arizona voting without citizenship proof. So SCOTUS gave a partial victory to the GOP trying to enforce proof of citizenship to vote in that area. And definitely, like I said, a lot of things going on, including some pushback, because I think Trump was even making some comments as Kamala was giving her speech and all along those lines. But we're going to bring in our panelists, see what they thought about the whole convention and just their thoughts in general. And I've got some amazing people with me. So I've got Jim Eade. He's coming at us from the West Coast, and that's definitely where Kamala Harris is. Had some of her history and all along those lines. We've also got Sasha Starr, and we've got Rick Rosner, and of course we've got with us Jatobi as well. So a lot of folks have been very excited about the convention. I know Jatobi's been very excited. We got Lee Rhodes in the background, and I think one of the founders of the network, Nick, is with us as well. So what is y'all's thoughts about what you heard? I mean, some people are saying that Trump had one of the longest speeches of all time, and then maybe Kamala Harris had one of the shortest.
So Trump spoke for 93 minutes. Harris spoke for a little more than 37 minutes, which is one of the shorter speeches. But still, I mean, it was a good speech. She's at 3 points. She's got a 3.6% lead over Trump right now in the polls. She's been increasing her lead by about 1% a week. 3.6 is not enough. Hillary won by 2%. The popular vote wasn't enough. I'll let other people talk. Then I'll throw more numbers at you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't know which one was going first, but I think honestly, this convention, because her speech I thought was very powerful, very forceful, and she hit it. She did very well, and trying to look at it at evenly. Trump did ramble on. However, when he stayed on prompter, he tried to give a decent speech, but then he went off prompter and rambled. But Kamala Harris stayed on prompter, stayed on her message, and just hit the nail on the head, offered exactly what she wanted to offer. But in totality, there were just it's a perfect contrast to what the RNC was offering, because as you point out, the speech that Trump gave was 90 some odd minutes. It was long. It was a traditional speech in terms of, hey, sure, it might have been the longest, but traditional speeches in past years have been long. People fall asleep. People don't really care. This was the new age. What the whole DNC did was usher in a new lifeblood of this is our new guard. They featured so many young people. Those speeches were roughly about 5 minutes at most. Some were maybe about 8 minutes, but they just featured the youth in the DNC. And hey, this is our young group. We understand that this is a TikTok world. We understand that this is where we are. We want our 5 seconds of fame. It used to be 15 minutes of fame, but now it's at 5 seconds. You hit and you're out. And that's what they hit on. And that's what her speech, and honestly, her speeches at even her rallies are quick. They're in and out. They're done because they know that that is the way of the world now. And that's why I think there was so much to her speech besides just the words she said, but how she said it. I mean, I thought it was well done, and I thought the DNC did such a phenomenal job with trying to tie it to the new world and away from the old traditions and old age stuff.
So she's got to get Biden in 2020. Sorry, was ahead by 8 to 10 percentage points in the polls, won by 4.5%, which was barely enough. So as I said, Harris is at 3.6. She's got to get up to Biden's 8% in the next 10 weeks to have a shot, I think.
I believe that in so many weeks, Trump will disintegrate, especially after the debates with Kamala, who is so many times smarter than this idiot is, much better educated, much more knowledgeable, much sharper. She's very quick on her feet. As Nick, as your lawyer, you understand what that means, okay? And she will just smash him. Any way you look at it, it doesn't matter how well he will prepare for this debates or so on. It's nothing going to help him at all. Because if you are not born with it, you'll die without it just as well. Trump is not qualified to be where he is now. It's a typical con artist, a deal from deal to deal person. Okay, I'll buy this, I'll give you $1.5 billion and you'll give me back 2 billion. Okay, is that a deal? Oh, you don't want to give me 2 billion, give me $1.7 billion. I'll be okay with that. Okay, we got the deal. It's a human garbage in a way. It's not even seriously could be considered. He should not be ever qualified to be president of a country like the United States. Come on, please. I don't think that he's even qualified to be a mid-manager of some mid-sized corporation. I even don't think so. Now, what's interesting, though, is that how carefully Kamala calibrated her speech, because she has one serious issue, and it's not her, it's a Democratic Party issue. There is a left-wing radical which turns people away tremendously from Democrats. This is things that has to be completely destroyed, taken out of the Democratic Party and never be there again. This is a big problem for Kamala and the Democratic Party. So now another thing is that many people accuse Kamala Harris and Democratic Party of anti-Semitism. Now that's I think she dealt with that. Actually, all conventions show that not only her husband is Jew and observes all the Jewish laws and traditions. So is Chuck Schumer. So is Josh Shapiro. So there are a lot of prominent Democrats who are Jews and who are involved in all the laws and traditions. So this is not so important as that pro-Palestinian left-wing radicals. That's very serious problem. And Kamala did it very well when she said that U.S. is unconditionally supportive of Israel. It's number one, okay? Then comes number two. At the same time, we understand that Palestinian people are suffering because of Hamas, a terrorist organization. So she shows that she is sympathetic to Palestinian people who are suffering. That's a fact. Nobody can deny that. But she also mentions why they're suffering, because of the Hamas. So if Hamas will be gone, there will be no more suffering for Palestinian people. So she was very, very clever to navigate this incredibly difficult issue. And I think that shows her qualifications for the being president, a very talented speaker and speech making abilities. And I think that Trumpism will be over in about 70 some days. It will be
Hey,
done over and never again.
I
hey,
agree.
Jim, just really quickly, one of the questions I was going to ask to everybody, and you kind of alluded to it, but there were some people in the Muslim community that got frustrated. I think the Muslims for Harris have actually disbanded and everything because they did not get a speaker opportunity or a chance to speak at the convention, while some prominent Jewish folks did, as well as some folks that are definitely supportive of Israel. And I'm not saying that that is a bad thing, but I'm just wondering how much damage will that cause in swing states, because there is a significant Muslim population in Michigan. There's a significant population in Pennsylvania and a couple of other places, even where the convention was held in Illinois. I think there's a significant Palestinian population. So, as a Jewish American, I know both of you, well, all three of you are, and everything. What is your take on that, Jim, as to how much that could impact the election, and could it be? I think that she will try to reach out to that community, but what is your take on how much that could be harmful, not having a speaker?
Well, I think it's right after the Olympics, so I'll just say that Kamala stuck the landing. That was a great convention, basically. But your point is well taken, Mark. I do think it would have been wise of them to give the Palestinian speaker an opportunity to speak. And as Sasha says, it's a very complicated situation. We are pro-Israel. We do back Israel. But Bibi has made a number of mistakes. He's a far right government right now needs to be changed. And what they're doing in terms of the civilian casualties and the death of women and children, that they're obviously not combatants. And this has turned the world against Israel in many cases. And the Palestinians have a point. So what we want is a ceasefire, and that's what Kamala said. We want a ceasefire, and we want to go back to the negotiation tables. And it's so complicated. Who knows what the outcome will be long term? But the fact of the matter is that we talk about like the polls. The polls have swung fairly drastically from Trump leading Biden to Harris leading Trump. And the key thing is the swing states. There's 6 or 7 states that are in play that will determine the election. So it's not the overall, as we learned with Hillary, that it's not the overall vote count that matters. And what we also learned with Hillary is if you don't campaign in these swing states, you'll lose. And so what Kamala was doing, what Biden is doing, is they're campaigning hard in these swing states. And they're looking at states like North Carolina, and they're not giving it up. They're making inroads in Texas and Florida, red states. And Ohio is a red state now, but they're making progress there. But will it be enough? The thing is if they turn Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, it's going to be very hard for Trump to win. So these electoral votes, a couple states, Nevada, Arizona, they're in play. So what I think they're much smarter now than Hillary's campaign was, and that they're really going hard in those states. They're taking out a lot of ads. And the thing is that she's raised an incredible amount of money since the torch was passed from Biden to her. And, this money is being spent, and it's being spent smartly. It's being spent in these swing states. And if they win those swing states, then I think we're seeing the last dying gasps of the MAGA movement.
Yeah,
Actually, what's interesting that beside the amount of money what they raised, it's $500 million, more. It's 500,000 volunteers that they signed just yesterday. 500,000 volunteers. Think about that. It's probably even more important than whatever money they raised. Now, speaking about Muslim delegates, to give them opportunity to speak, I was thinking about that. And now all these Jewish speakers, they were speaking not because they were Jewish, but primarily because the positions they had, it's either a governor or speaker or the head of the, I forgot the name, head of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, majority leader. So I'm not so sure about any such prominent Muslims. But however, okay, there are some prominent Muslims. What are they going to tell to American people? Like what? They will say that my people, Palestinians, are suffering because of the Hamas? No, they're not going to say that. So they're going to say they're suffering because of Israelis. But that's not true because not Israelis started that war. And all that led to the present situation is that Israel, everybody admits, even Muslims, that Israel has a right to defend itself. Okay, that's number one, number two, and number three. Now, from that position, then we go if US and other powers would not mess with Israel, they would finish this war several months ago. All what they do, they would take all the Hamas fighters out, uh, kill them, jail them, tried them, whatever, but there would be no more Hamas. Now, because of this meddling, the war is going on. Now, the latest, what I heard about these peace negotiations is that Israel accepts U.S. offer for peace conditions. It's Hamas who did not accept it. And that's why the war is still going on. That's why the people are still being killed. And now, so what Muslim speaker on this convention, what do you think would say anything viable that people would be hearing?
I still think it would have been nice to give someone a voice, if nothing else, to let the minority speak.
You could have given, yeah.
It's a principle that the Democratic Party has stood by, and also, the thing that you're saying is absolutely correct. And the Hamas and Hezbollah backers, you look at a state like Iran, they're responsible for keeping the war going. So we have to.
If you go further, it's Russia as well.
Yeah, if we got the Arab states together, the peace would be right around the corner. If they would pressure these organizations to stop with the terrorist threats, the terrorist actions, but also Bibi's got to take responsibility for what he's done in terms of the settlements, and and he and his far right government have exasperated the situation over and over and over again. So there's mutual blame. But the time for blame is over. The time for peace has arrived. And as you were saying, though, Hamas is the one standing in the way of a ceasefire. It is not Israel. So, but I still think that it would have been smarter to have it. Well, I don't know if it's smarter because I'm not that politically savvy, but I do believe it would have been appropriate to give a Palestinian a voice. But you're also correct that the Jews that spoke are people like the Senate leader, Schumer. So he's got to speak. It's so.
Part of the argument was that there was some voices from the Jewish community that were not political leaders, because there were some of the family members of some of the victims and all along those lines, and that is part of what was being urged, with that some of the victims of the Gaza terror needed to be heard as well.
Well, the teary-eyed stuff was the speakers, the parents of the people that were gunned down in the elementary schools. Right. That was really horrible. Not horrible that it happened, but horrible to listen to.
You could have thrown a Palestinian speaker in during like garbage time at the very beginning of the night when nobody's watching yet.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, because you were talking about North Carolina, and that's actually what happened, because one of our speakers, actually the mayor of the city that I am in and everything, originally was not going to speak. It was bumped from speaking on one of the days, and then he wound up speaking on the closing day. But it was at that time that you're talking about. So Mayor Leonardo Williams spoke at around 7 o'clock or something along those lines, which is not a peak hour, but he did get a chance to speak because he was actually talking about the rise in entrepreneurship, and because he and his wife own a major Zimbabwean restaurant, because she is from Zimbabwe, and all on those lines. So he actually got a chance to speak and bring up the notion of even how business is being developed by the Biden-Harris administration.
You've got a candidate there, Mark Robinson, your terrible Republican governor candidate, who's been accused of like blatant finance, just stealing from his campaign. Is that going to have any impact?
Well, I mean, Josh Stein right now is leading, from my understanding, and definitely there's a lot of people that are saying he has a significant lead. Roy Cooper, who is our governor, actually did a good job, I think, in introducing Kamala Harris. I think that probably Jacoby watched that as well. One of the things that I saw that was funny on the opposite side, and I know y'all saw around this, is that apparently on True Social at the time that she was speaking, Trump was making counter arguments. And one of his counter arguments was that she did not speak about China and she did not speak about oil and a number of other issues that he thinks are important. I actually did hear her speak about China because she referenced China in reference to us beating China in AI in the technology war. So he said that she didn't mention China, even though she plainly did say something about China in her remarks. But anybody's thoughts around that?
However long minutes that Trump speaks, you double it to tell the number of lies that he said.
and that's where I liked what she said, because that's where the future lies, and that's where our continued economic opportunities to dominate the world are in tech and AI. We need to be the country that does it. And the country that owns tech and AI is going to be the country that owns the world.
And I think we also have to change we have to go from an adversarial view of China to a competitive view of China. And right now we're at such an adversarial view where anything whatsoever is evil, it's hatred. We got to get out of that, because that's not how we're going to move forward, especially with what Rick is talking about in terms of competing on the AI technological side, because there are a lot of chips that come from China. Heck, the iPhone to every phone that you use, every computer that you're on deals with some piece, some part, or whatever that comes from China. So it's just a competitive market that we should look at it as, rather than, hey, we should hate. And also, why is she going to hammer home about drilling when currently we're drilling more now than we ever had in the history of our country?
Than any country.
Yeah, so it's just Trump, when he opens his mouth, he's lying. So and he's been allowed to get away with it for so long.
It's incredible.
Defended for so long.
Not so much, Jacoby, about China. Okay, in the latest document released by Pentagon, it shows that in very short period of time, United States will not be able to deal militarily with Russia, China, and North Korea, and soon could be Iran. And I'm talking about conventional, and I'm talking about the nuclear weapons. So if before there were, say, approximately 1,500 warheads in U.S. arsenal, maybe a little bit more in Russian, but so it was somewhat equality, and they were talking about making some kind of a deal of non-proliferation and some restrictions and so on. Now, China, with about 250 warheads, would not be even part of the discussion, because England and France would have similar number of warheads. So it was taken out of equation. Now, when there is a very serious cooperation between China and Russia, and they are doing war games together, and China now announced that they are planning to have 1,000 missiles, intercontinental missiles, by the year 2027, and 1,500, or rather 2030 to be exact, and 1,500 warheads, which is similar to what Russia and the United States have, by the year 2035. So obviously, China is not friendly power to United States, never was, never will be, and it should be taken into account. So Pentagon is now starting a new round of enhancing its arsenal of conventional and non-conventional arms. So that's where the China stands. Now, about trading here and there, So China trades with Russia as well. And of course, for China, it would be very painful if U.S. will impose sanctions, secondary sanctions, and that's what U.S. probably will do anyway. And I don't run ahead and saying that China is our great friend and we have to compete or so on. No, we have to take China for really what it is. It's a very serious, not only competition, but a threat, especially in a few years from now.
So we haven't had nuclear arms talks with anybody, I think, since 2011, and anything more than a couple hundred warheads will just devastate the whole northern hemisphere anyway. Yeah. So we have 10 times as many warheads as we could conceivably need. So does Russia. So does China. It would be great if we could get some talks going to see if we could hold every country to under 1,000. I mean,
yeah, the mutually assured destruction is still there, and I didn't hear.
But I just read a book saying that is a threadbare system that relies on good luck as much as anything, and eventually your luck runs out. Somebody mistakes a blip for an attack and launches the missiles, and so. But speaking of markets, the markets are up more than 1% now because Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, explicitly said today the time has come to cut rates.
Hey,
so we knew it, but now
is it too little, too late?
Nah, he can cut. I mean, we're not. The economy's not falling apart.
Not at all.
The Dow just broke 41,000 again.
It's been an astounding run. Yeah, so
he can cut 50 points though and make things right.
It's way past time for him to start cutting rates. It's been a problem. It's been a problem for a long time. But no one's saying China's our friend. Everyone has to be realistic about that. China is definitely out for China, and because if it can screw the United States while doing it, it will. So you have your eyes clear when you're dealing with someone like that. It doesn't mean that you don't engage, and I still believe in this. Engaging with them will do better than confronting them. And rattling your sabers is not going to achieve what trade and doing business together will achieve. And so this is back to Nixon.
And even though China's a very modern country, there's still a communist dictatorship.
Absolutely.
And so,
as is North Korea, as is Russia.
Yeah. So their moves depend on what the half dozen guys at the top decide to do, as opposed to what the citizens might want.
And they don't care about their citizens. That's what they have in common. They could put their citizens through enormous pain, starvation, and they're not going to change their policy. That's one of the differences between them and the United States. We try not to starve our citizens to death. But
okay, can we stop the party and look at some facts? Left wings over here. So we're going to get rid of this whole concept.
All these left wingers who are raising your fists to China
right now, since you guys chased off the right wing. So let's look at some facts. some
I thought Rick started the show with facts, Nick. Come on.
I know, but let's look at some real facts. Unemployment 4.3%, the largest revision they've had since a decade or so. And one of the highest unemployment rates. Okay, this is the reality of what's happening with Biden economics. But what's worse, the dollar has lost 25% of its value in the last 4 years relative to other currencies, which, by the way, bothers me when I'm moving to Spain and I'm watching the dollar plummet thanks to Bidenomics. But it gets worse.
That's nonsense.
It gets worse. Can I speak, Counselor?
Of course you can speak, but you're talking about facts. But you'll
have time to rebut. You'll have time to rebut the facts as much as you like, Counselor. Okay, bankruptcy 6,276. It's the highest since 2017, and it gets worse. Home sales were the lowest since the pandemic, down 6.8%, and then finally, record number of Americans, except the people on our network because we're all rich. Record number of Americans are working more than multiple jobs right now. So this is what they call Biden economics, and it even gets worse because our deficits and our debt are highest in history. And you're all parading around in Chicago like everything's fine. And frankly, it may be fine for all of us because we're all rich. But let me tell you, 90% of Americans are being screwed. They know it. And Donald Trump's going to hit that home run out of the park when it comes to.
Absolutely wrong. False on all accounts. The unemployment rate is low and wages have gone up. And these are facts. You can't just pick and choose certain numbers over one short period of time and say they're a pattern. They're not a pattern. Under Trump, the interest rates went up. The foreign debt went up, way up, much more so than under Biden. So by percentages and facts, the facts are that the economy is booming. Corporations are reporting record earnings. People's wages have gone up. Unemployment has gone down. So, what you're talking about is absolutely 100% backwards from the reality. The economy is doing very well. Yes, there is a portion of the economy that does not affect everyone. And there are still people that are poor, still people that are suffering. Absolutely. There's no question about that. But what you ask yourself, if you were better now than you were before, the answer is, except for the global pandemic caused by COVID, which started the inflation rate, which was global in nature. It was not centered around the United States. It was global. And once that inflation rate has started to come down, which it has, it was at 9%, it's now at 3%. It's no longer an issue. Yet, the prices that went up because of the COVID inflation, COVID destroyed the economic distribution system. And so prices went up. And so the corporations have realized that they can still charge the same. But now there's pressure going on them now where people are looking for bargains and people are not paying the outrageous prices that corporations have been able to charge.
So when the Fed in 2 or 3 weeks starts cutting interest rates, pent-up demand is going to make home sales go up.
Absolutely. And home sales they're gone through the roof around here. So, it's nonsense to say that it's a problem. They've been selling so much that any relative thing is a downtick is not news. It's just part of reality.
But I agree.
So now with the temporary downtick, come on, Nick.
I kind of agree.
I agree. The top 10% are doing really well. Jim, I absolutely agree. I'm doing really well, but I'm in the top 10%.
But
top 1%'s doing better.
Nick, where did you get those figures, by the way?
Go look at all the homeless people in your
Nick,
state, Jim.
The top 70%, you start making sense.
Nick, where did you
homelessness now, Nick? You don't care about the homeless.
Nick, where did you get your figures?
You're an elitist. You don't care.
How about all the unemployment? Well, here's what I do care. Biden destroyed the dollar. Go look at the dollar versus the euro.
I'm looking at the dollar versus the pound, which I care about because our kids in England.
Okay, go ahead.
The dollar looks like it's holding its own over the past 5 years versus the pound.
Yeah, Nick is talking through his.
Okay, have you looked at the last year? Tell me how it's going the last year.
Now you're talking the last year.
Was a spike.
That's
the last year, I looked at the dollar.
It's Biden's fault for the last year. Come on, Nick. Get a grip.
And now you only
look at the wrong term. When you're talking about these things, these short-term shifts aren't meaningful.
Before I moved to Europe.
Nick, you're
terrible. Economics.
Hold on a second. Jacoby had a question.
You're voting for Trump.
Jacoby had a question.
Just to point out, and I mean, if you want to share my screen, you can. But the annual change in the dollar's value to the euro in 2017, it dropped roughly about 13%. In 2020, it dropped about looks like about 9%. In 2021, it jumped about 6-7%. In 2022,
Nick,
jumped
you're just playing with
5%.
numbers to make a false argument.
You're
embarrassing yourself.
No, I'm losing money.
You're embarrassing
it's already
yourself.
up
Listen to him. He's talking facts.
So Nick, I'm just reading off the facts that you said that you had.
Yeah.
Now, if you're saying that the
Jacoby, get me
I'm just reading
94 cents on the dollar.
Mega is dying. It's breathing its last dying breath. Get off the train, Nick. It left the station.
They
know,
want-
I
that-
gotta
they
switch
want-
over
to
to-
Trump now,
I
man.
gotta switch over to the
Anyone
euro.
supporting
Hey,
Trump
Joseph.
now is un-American, Nick. You
Buy
should move to
economics.
Spain. You
Hold on a
should
second,
move to
everybody.
Spain.
I'll tell you
Go to
something.
Canada because
You made
I'm
your
looking
go
at
away.
I'm looking
I
at
can't
the
do
5
anything.
years chart of US dollars versus euros. And you know what? It's today exactly where it was 5 years ago.
There you
Didn't
go,
move
Nick.
down,
You and
didn't
your
move up.
facts.
It's
Nonsense.
exactly where
You
it
should be
was
ashamed of
5
yourself.
It
years
was
ago.
94 cents to the
You're
dollar.
ashamed-
Thanks
you
to Biden
should be
economics,
ashamed
it's
of
now
yourself,
90
Nick.
cents.
No,
My
hold
wife
on,
is going to
because
kill me
you're
'cause she
cherry
said we
picking
should
your
move to
numbers.
euros.
In
quickly.
October 2022, there was a crazy spike where the dollar was almost worth as much as the pound, and it was worth more than the euro. That almost never happened. So if you're measuring against that, yeah, it's down, but that was a crazy spike. Now,
That's
I want to
playing with
agree
numbers,
with you
Nick.
about
Are you talking about the Trump spike? Is that the
You're no, it's
No.
not. You
Okay.
can't lay that on the
Biden
president.
spike.
Liberals, please.
You
Just
can't
say
lay
this
that on the
is Trump is
president.
It was
Hey,
January
Big
6th
mega
spike.
hat. Where's your mega
on,
hat?
just say it.
Nick, put on
Say
your
it.
mega hat.
Say it. That's because
Come on.
Trump was in office.
Show up, man. Put on the mega hat. Get
No,
in gear.
2022, the
Look at my
spike was
mega hat.
right in the middle of frickin' Biden. You made me spit on my screen. But I want to talk about jobs for a second. We do have a bunch of crap jobs now, but I don't think that's because of Biden. I think it's because of technology. Technology has disrupted all these job markets, replacing good jobs with these disruptive jobs like Uber driver, DoorDash, OnlyFans, where we have 1.1 million nude models in America now. That's not a great job that you have to show your bits to make money. I mean, maybe it's easy. Maybe you only have to work
Mega
an
people
hour a
control
day,
the
but it's a
comments.
ridiculous job.
Well, people have been working multiple jobs since the 70s. This is not a new phenomenon. And yeah, it gets worse every year. So what? We know that. But to blame this on somebody now is ridiculous. And people have been working multiple jobs. Everybody talks about it. You can't afford to have a single income in a family anymore. We know that. We've known that for decades. Come on. This is nonsense.
If you want
the comments, you can throw up whatever you want on the screen. That's your power. You own it. But the fact is, you should be wearing a MAGA hat. Be honest.
And Nick, the funny thing about your
I'm just trying to be a little bit fair and balanced since this
Fair and
Fair and balanced. That was
you guys are
It's
so
not fair and balanced.
sued for something now.
Fox says they're fair and balanced, and they got sued for lying.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Oh,
fair and
come
balanced.
on.
That's
Oh,
good.
man.
You should be on Fox,
There's
Nick.
two sides to every story, counselor, and this is just one.
I
Maybe.
found the
It's
exchange
not two
rate
sides to this
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Absolutely.
dollar
Horrible
I
on your
found
side. I mean,
the
we have
exchange
full
rate
employment.
of US
Trump's always been a
dollar
loser.
versus Israeli shekel. In 5 years, it didn't move anywhere. It's 3.6 shekel will buy you $1 US. It was 5 years ago. It's today. How about that?
So that's just one currency. I'm
And then, hold
talking
on,
about the
Nick.
euro, baby.
Nick, you talked
No,
about
no,
the
you're
unemployment
right.
numbers.
Like,
You're
and
right.
then you're comparing
Nick, you
it to
talked about the unemployment numbers real quick, just to point out.
Yeah, let's go
That's
talk about
lousy
that.
thinking,
You
Nick,
said
and you're better than
you
that.
said
I know you're better than
4.3%
that.
right now.
4.3%.
Yeah,
I remember at a
4.3%.
time it was
Yeah,
like 3 or
it
less.
ticked up.
Unemployment under 5% is the target.
But you know,
Well,
Yeah,
if I
but
remember
it's
at the
good.
time it was
Nick,
3 or
counselor,
less.
hold on.
I know you guys in
Under-
California love homeless people. because
Counselor,
you have
just
so
to
many
point
of
out-
them.
Yeah, you guys in Northern California, Northern
Okay.
Carolina hate them, right?
Just to
No,
point
no,
out,
we- we-
unemployment,
That's
you
what
didn't
you
say
go to, the
anything.
hate trick. Hate the state. Come on, Nick.
Who put up
You
this?
didn't say
Better than that.
anything when
Well,
unemployment.
you know, they're
Argue
leaving. You're saying-
intelligently.
You know
Don't
that.
go on with this anti-California stuff. That's
Nick,
beneath
I don't
anybody.
have to. The people are leaving your
Nick,
state. I can't hold
Nick,
that.
unemployment
No one
jumped
understand
to
our homeless.
It's expensive to
14%
live here.
under
People
Trump.
live in the state. It's obvious. So what?
How many homeless people are in LA County? Rick?
73,000.
Oh, 73,000. That's bigger than
Number
most
2
cities
in
North
America,
Carolina.
second to New York City. So if you want to blame anybody for crap
Biggest cities have
jobs,
the biggest
if you want
problem.
to blame somebody, so blame women. So World War II, Men go to war, and Rosie the Riveter goes to work. Women fill up the workforce. Men come back home. Women get kicked out of the workforce in the 50s. Then we have women's lib, 60s and 70s. Women move into the workforce. Employers say, well, now we can't pay as much for jobs because now we have twice as many people working. So we're going to lower wages. So it's employers effing over the work world because they with two people working in a marriage, employers pay less. It's a terrible exploitative trend, but that, if you want to look long term, that's what effed up.
Hey, what was the S&P under Trump compared to what the S&P is now, Nick?
I said the top 10% are doing well under Biden economics.
No, but that's
So
the
just screw
S&P.
everybody
That's
else.
like top 500 companies.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying, but you
Nick
have
and
to
everybody.
realize what I said, Jim.
I
quite
heard what
correctly.
you said, Nick.
The top 10% are doing well.
And I've been
under
telling you
Biden.
that it's more than that.
Bottom
Over
90%
50%
are
of the
being
people are doing
screwed
fine.
under Biden.
People
And
poll.
the bottom 90% need
Nick,
to get out and vote.
You're telling
for
a
Trump.
lie, Nick. You're doing Trump's
It's true.
work.
Your
It's
top
not
10% are
true.
doing great.
When the polls say, how are you doing financially? 73% of the people say, I'm doing fine. 73%, Nick. So your top 10% is nonsense. Top 10% is doing extremely well. Fantastic. Incredibly well. Better in the history of the world. But
Jim, maybe
the
they're all
73% are doing
multimillionaires.
well.
Maybe all these people are multimillionaires. That's why they're doing so well. 77% or so.
73%
That's true.
respond that they're doing well, and they still don't trust the economy at large, but they're doing well.
You know
So
what I
70%
found?
report
I
this.
found exchange rate of US dollar versus Canadian dollars. Today, same as 5 years
How much
ago,
did the debt go up,
you
Nick,
need
under Trump?
1.35 Canadian dollars to buy 1 US dollar. It's the same thing which was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, Nick, you
You're
have
telling
to
a
get
story,
better
Nick.
with numbers. You need to do better
No,
job.
hey,
Got it,
look,
Nick.
when you give me 94 cents on the dollar, which I could just
You know,
several months
Nick,
ago, but thanks to
You're
Biden
talking to a
economics,
bunch
we
of
got
people that
90
know the
then we
numbers.
can talk.
Go
But
to
since I
a,
lost
go
a
to
lot
a
of money
forum
since,
where people are
okay, then
stupid, Nick,
there's
and you
nothing
can
there.
push that BS all
No.
you want.
Okay. Well, wonderful. While you guys are out partying in Chicago, and Jacoby said, we had such a great party. There's 73,000 people, according to Rick Rosner, homeless in LA. Okay.
And so
Did they
what
discuss
are you
that?
going to do
No,
about that, Nick?
Because under the Democratic Party,
What are you
having a
gonna
lot
do
of
about
homeless
that, Nick?
people is wonderful. They don't care. They only care about their elite
Listen
politicians.
to the country
that are
club
in
guy,
Congress.
the country club
And that's the
lawyer.
reason the
You
mega
read it,
party
Nick,
exists.
talk
Hey,
about
Nick.
us not
They want
caring.
to help.
Hey, Nick,
Yeah,
hold on a second.
What
Read it,
policy
country
did
club
Trump
talking about me not
Kamala
caring.
Harris isn't the
That's
answer. She didn't
hysterical,
give
Nick.
her answer.
I can't believe you're talking out of both sides of your mouth and still smiling.
She just doesn't care. And the Democratic border security, what's that?
Nick,
How many millions
you're
of people
just doing
did
an
they
awful job.
let into the United
Trump-
States? Then they run to
Trump
California.
killed the
and
bill of the border.
We don't care, right? We
We
don't
like
care, but
Biden.
the country club Republicans do.
No, Kamala's great for me. She helps the 10%, the top 10%. She's horrible for the rest of the country. Horrible. And she doesn't keep.
Absolute nonsense.
Last
73%
year-
of people report
Let's
they're
go look
doing
at the
fine.
homeless people. Here we go.
73%, Nick, not 90%, like you're trying to get us to believe.
Hey, how many
You're
homeless people are
telling
in your
us
city?
Story. You're
Jim.
just talking.
Jim, how many
nonsense.
homeless people are in San Francisco, your city?
73% of the American population, Nick.
Well, maybe they like being
50%
homeless.
included.
Hey, look, maybe those 73 people like being homeless.
In-
Durham is included in that.
In 2023, the last year for which we have statistics, blue collar wages outpaced inflation by 0.9%,
Fact.
which is not a lot, but it's better than falling behind to inflation.
And Nick, why are you trying to advocate and complain that there's so many homeless people when Trump wants to cut benefits to the homeless individuals? So
Stop
you're
Medicare for all.
you're basically gonna leave people who are already out there struggling, trying to find help, where the Democrat Party wants
get
to help
everybody
them.
covered. Give everybody insurance.
Wait, Jacoby, you're out partying with all those people in Chicago.
We don't care about people. We don't care about the
ignoring them.
homeless. Right, Nick? Go tell that story on a different network. This one's not buying it.
You know, I mean,
Well, they mentioned, because they did mention a little bit about what was going on, because they even talked about the gap, the wage gap between women and men, which you kind of alluded to earlier and everything. So that was actually talked about. And they also talked about housing credits to get people into homes, which is an economic policy. So that was actually mentioned
Only
in
the Democratic Party is
whole
worrying about
conversation.
it.
So there were a number of things that were brought up. And all
Republicans
along
have
those
no
lines, some of
policy,
it is
none whatsoever. They're not talking about it. They don't have a policy to talk about.
The only thing they have is Project 2025.
And
that's a good
I want to talk about
project, because
Hey,
what they're
you
going to
guys
do in Project
have a win.
2025.
You
is
don't
start
care about how you
getting
get
rid of
ahead.
all
If you
the
step on someone's
professional
neck,
politicians
that's good.
in Washington, D.C. That's a great idea. You need to read it. It's 900 pages of getting rid of the worthless bureaucrats.
Yeah, that's what it's about,
and
Nick.
contraceptive.
I hope they
Again,
implement
telling a
those.
story, picking
And
and
basically
choosing what to
eventually
support.
making it illegal to jerk off. Project 2025 is ridiculous. But I want to talk about a real issue, which is experience. So
Nick, you're embarrassing.
where if Harris gets elected, that can be an issue. Obama came out of nowhere to become president, and he basically he spent all his political capital on getting Obamacare passed. So he didn't get that much
Over
done.
Republican opposition.
So he wasn't experienced. Trump, zero experience, didn't get jack shit passed. Biden, 50 years of experience, actually got a lot of stuff done. So, but Harris,
MAGA
not that
controls
much
the
experience. So she runs the risk of not getting shit done. I'm hoping she keeps a lot of Biden people around with a ton of experience, because if she comes in cold, then she'll run into the Obama problem and the Trump problem.
And the Trump is just going to bring in a bunch of bootlickers. They don't have any experience. They won't know what to do.
No, Trump hires the only people who are willing to work for Trump are either crooked or incompetent. The competent people like Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, used to run Exxon. He lasted 10 months and then he left.
The admirals and the generals, they left. They took one look at him.
Some of them spoke at the DNC.
Well, Trump also said that he was going to throw. He loves the way football coaches are, so he's going to put football coaches in the head of the military. That's dumb. So the thing is, also, just to push back a little bit on the inexperienced thing, because I think she doesn't have a ton, but she does have some. And also, I think Walz is a good negotiator and has been a good negotiator in Congress already. So having Walz on the ticket to be able to help her on negotiations.
Yeah, she was.
Plus, she does have some experience with being in the Senate as well as being vice president for 4 years and having to negotiate down in Mexico. In South America, dealing with the countries trying to find a root of a problem and then trying to figure things out. So I think she has some experience, but yeah, Rick, it's going to be tough, especially on what Congress gets in there.
Yeah. But you told me along those same lines, just a quick question, because one of the complaints that happened in the African American community after Obama was elected was that people expected more to be delivered than was delivered, because you have to go through the whole notion of politics. And I do sometimes wonder, because there is a youth bump if a lot of the young people understand what they are getting into and everything, because I think that they may have some, I don't want to call it false promise, but it's like some false expectations if she is to be elected and everything, and that they might get frustrated even in things like AI and other things if they don't see the development that they are hoping to have developed, whether that's crypto, whether that's AI, or
not only a perception problem, it's a real problem.
There's a honeymoon period you get as a new president. That thing has shrunk to nothing. Trump got 2 weeks of honeymoon. Freaking. So I don't know how you fight that. But Biden got, I don't know, close to a year of decent approval ratings, and then he pulled us out of Afghanistan. His approval tanked, never recovered.
I think what happens in the African American community with what you're talking about, Mark, is the fact that in the minority communities, we've been overlooked so many times. And then by the time once we get there, it's not only a sigh of relief because we think something is finally going to change. Something is going to come our way. And then we begin to look for things that say it's a bill angled directly towards Black people. But the problem is, because of our society, when you look at things like people arguing against DEI because they're saying that it's woke and all this other mess, but not understanding what the actual purpose of the actual of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. And same thing with affirmative action. Both plans actually help white women more so than it helped even any minority. So it's just that we get to a point where we're like, hey, there's this big relief, this expression that, yes, we've made it. Yes, we're going to be seen as equal. Yes, something's going to change now. And when it doesn't, because of all the politics and the histrionics that are still in this nation, we get frustrated because we put somebody in office that we thought, like with Obama, President Obama did some great things in the community with the My Brother's Keeper bills and stuff like that. But we overlooked those things because we wanted
more.
When you're done with your rhetoric, I'd like to get so many years
and so many times, so much, and abused so much. It's that little piece. I mean, people are still asking for reparations, which legitimately should happen, but it's not something that will ever happen because of the fact of where our nation is. So yes, she's going to pass for a little bit.
Rick's got his hand up.
She's going to
okay. Well, listen to Rick, but then I want to get some real numbers.
So Obama made a strategic decision to be no drama Obama, because I think he figured rightly that if he was the angry Black man, which Key and Peele made fun of, he might lose the country. But by leaning back away from confrontation, he constantly got frickin' played by the Republicans. With the worst thing was McConnell saying, I'm not going to give you a Supreme Court justice. Suck it. And then later, like, Obama went to McConnell saying, well, we've got all this evidence that Trump is colluding with Russia and that he's being investigated by the FBI. And I want to announce it. McConnell says, nope, I'm just going to make it look partisan. And then the FBI said Hillary's being investigated. Nobody mentioned that Trump also cost the election. So Harris,
Comey did
run into the same racial and demeanor, but she's pushing joy and stuff. Can joy successfully fight a bunch of MAGA dickheads?
Well, let's take a look at the real numbers.
Take a look at more jerry-rigged facts.
Here's some numbers that Rick gave us. 73,000 homeless right now in LA, which I think
whose fault is that? Who are you blaming for that, Nick?
And let's go look at this one.
Who are you blaming for this, Nick?
This is your area, Jim. 35,000.
Who are you blaming for this?
You like homeless. Now let's look at Durham. 118.
How many people live in Durham?
Thank you for the red states.
How many?
Okay, so one problem.
Hold on, wait. Real quick.
How many people live in Durham?
Hold on. Hold on. You just said thank you to the red state as you point out a diehard blue city. So, Nick, again, you're trying
but it's not a blue state.
And then here's the big question.
Look at this.
You want to bring up these homeless numbers.
This is Kamala Harris.
You want to bring up these homeless numbers, but yet you have no solution.
What were the numbers under Trump?
Why are you arguing?
What happened?
Why don't you learn to solve the problem?
With California, our success is also our downfall.
People come here to California.
House prices in California run $800 to $1,000 a square foot. So many people come out here, get rich, that it squeezes just regular people out of housing.
Nobody thinks, oh, I
Yeah,
should
yeah,
go to Durham.
all these.
I
all
should go
these-
be a star in Durham. Oh yeah,
Check out,
I'm
check out how
I'll go make my
horrible.
living in Durham.
We can have a big
Check
party.
out
We can
how
have a big
horrible
party
your
in
numbers
San
are.
Francisco.
How many
Joe,
people
Nick,
live
like
in
some
Getting
Durham?
worse, not
Nick,
better
Nick,
with your
Nick,
numbers.
do this one for me then, because you want to talk about, you're not thinking about the population size as well.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah,
population of
what's the
Durham in
population of
comparison to the
What's
population
the population
of
of
San Francisco
Durham?
and
Come
LA?
on, Nick, this is basic.
I'm just putting the facts out. Why are you
This is basic. Yo, you
Here,
need to
Nick,
Why
you
don't
know
you
what?
admit-
You know
Yeah,
what?
Trump
why don't
just
you
gives us
admit the
facts.
failure
Nick.
of
You
I
got
got no
the
homeless
Trump
people in my
facts going
backyard.
down.
you created the
no
homeless
homeless
people
people
in
in my
Trump
California.
backyard.
fact. Jacoby, it's a Trump fact.
Yeah, it's
What
Trump.
did I tell you? And you
You
guys
went to
are
Trump
okay with
University.
Don't use your brain.
You guys
Turn
like
your brain
the
off
homeless
and
people.
accept
There you
the
go.
numbers.
There we go. Hey, wait.
How many
there's-
people live
we had
in
a
Los big
party,
Angeles, Nick?
Jeff,
You
in
haven't
San
answered the
Francisco. We'll invite
question.
the homeless.
We've asked you
35,000
5 times
people.
now. How many people live in Los
Oh,
Angeles?
good in Durham, 118.
How many people live in Durham, Nick?
How many
You know-
people? Let's do a comparison,
Right,
Nick.
so
No,
we're
no,
gonna
no.
LA.
Look, I'm
LA
not the
will
one
be
who created a cesspool of homelessness. That's all California economics that are
so,
going on.
so LA will be forced
That's,
to
Kamala Harris'
figure out-
hometown.
we have a deadline to figure out the homeless problem in LA
I get
because
that.
the Olympics are coming in less than 4 years. We got to figure out where we're going to put our. We can't have the Olympics and have people driving around this, news trucks driving around the city and seeing all the encampments. So we will figure it out. I don't know what we'll do.
Good.
We will
All right.
get them out of here by 2028.
You mean you can do what
Maybe
Nick's
you can
favorite,
invite them to a
you can do
party
what
at
Nick's
the
favorite
DNC
people
party in
did when they
Chicago.
went over to
Nobody thinks
Qatar,
of
was
moving
it?
to North Carolina, Nick. Nobody thinks of
They can go to a
dreaming of
DNC
moving to
party in
North Carolina.
Chicago.
Hey, Nick.
Nobody does.
Rick, I think Nick is going to advocate for what they did over, was it Saudi Arabia, where they took a bunch of homeless
I'm
people
just
to
saying,
build the stands and the stations and everything else. Basically had what the GOP's 2025 Project 2025 plan is, basically making people into slaves.
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
No,
But anyway,
I think we'll have to.
Yeah.
We'll have to. We'll have to build. We're going to have to build stuff out in we're going north of California.